I mean, because why would it be such a big deal for him to be in a helicopter and then to chase after me? And I noticed that he had this one pin on his lapel, and I said, "What?" I said, "That's a sharpshooter pin." And I asked him what a sharpshooter was. So I think he had something to do with the military too, but if not, he was some sort of, he had an award for being a sharpshooter. After I was pulled over for this one, already in Oregon, they were trying to give me a lot of tickets for things I hadn't done. You know, the one ticket that was disappearing from the courthouse for a parking ticket. And I already had an idea that they had this strategy. They were going to rack up as many tickets as they could against me so that I couldn't pay them and that they could possibly take my license away. And I think that that was possible in the state of Oregon, but it wasn't in Washington. So if I had a Washington driver's license, you couldn't do that. But there was some pending court stuff that was going on where somebody wanted to change that rule and make that the same for Washington state too. However, it was pending and nothing had taken place. There was no legal grounds for anyone to lose their license over an unpaid ticket sum. So, in hindsight, even maybe a couple months after some of these things were happening, I was figuring out intuitively that that's what they were trying to do. And that is actually exactly what they did. But instead of going about it the legal way and waiting for laws to pass, which would have made it legal for them, they jumped the gun on it and they broke the law. And the FBI and police assisted them in doing that. So, I need some coffee. And I was going to stop this, this thing on a break again on the camera, but I think I'm just going to grab my coffee while it's running because I need to keep this going, and I said that I would do more of these, try to do a more lengthy segment so that you can see that I'm not wigging out in the middle of the day. Although I did have someone knocking on my door in the middle of the day and I had to answer that, so that kind of broke me away for a little while from doing this. And my hope is to get through as much of this as possible so that it's just over and done with, because I don't plan to be making these video posts, you know, indefinitely. I have a point for doing this, and it's to explain what the real story is, or at least some of it, to be able to show that, I mean, sometimes I don't think I convey what's going on. I was noticing, for example, if I look at my blog, and I just read something today that said, it was a post that said, if you read it and you didn't see my face or anything else, it just said, they tortured me all night and I couldn't sleep, and I think they're trying to kill me. Just reading that little clip, because I was distressed, and it is true, they've done some horrible things and they continue to do these things, but just reading that short statement without seeing my face or meeting me or seeing the expression in my eyes or anything, just taken completely out of context, it sounds crazy. But I think that in context, when you can see that I'm in a stable, normal state of mind, and that a lot of events have happened and occurred that have led up to this, I think that it's easier for somebody to believe me, because I could say right now, I was tortured last night, and then explain what happened or whatever, and I think that seeing me and also knowing some of the background information, it's easier to believe me, or to trust that I'm not a wacko. And my foot just fell asleep because I was sitting on it wrong. Oh my word. Right now it is just a few minutes before 9 o'clock. I'm still trying to get my foot to feel like normal. I thought one day I thought about putting some classical music on, and I will probably just edit this out anyway, but I don't feel like shutting this thing down. But that would be very distracting, wouldn't it? I actually really hate to turn that off because just there it got really beautiful. It's very depressing sounding, but I kind of like it. So maybe I will leave it on until I hear what the name of that is. And I don't think it'll be that distracting if it's not very loud. Okay. So now it's getting very blurry. The camera is focusing in and out, and the lighting is It's exactly the same. I'm not doing anything differently. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to leave this classical music for a little bit because I wanted to hear what piece it is, because I don't know what it is. I don't recognize it. I actually like the more depressing part better than this little lively, bright part. So, because this part sounds like anything from anywhere to me. Well, I was talking about being pursued by police or whatever as I was moving my things. And every time that I was moving, taking a carload of belongings over to my grandparents, they were just placed all over and all around. So I did get one speeding ticket, and I deserved it. And and then there were other times that I really didn't. Probably there was a time or two where I was speeding a little bit, and I probably did deserve to be pulled over had somebody pulled me over. But I can also say honestly that there were times, many, many times, that I was pulled over and it was just harassment, and I had not done anything wrong. I cannot tell you how many times I was pulled over on a harassment basis. You know, if I'd been pulled over for doing something that I actually had done, I understand that, but just to be harassed and have my car searched all the time, or blocked from traveling, and to have somebody nosing around to find out whether or not I have renewed my driving insurance is harassment. So it got to the point that, later in Wenatchee, I said one thing to a social worker that I had for the first time in my life. I'd never been on any kind of state assistance at all. But after this country used the Department of Justice and the military to drive me out of my lawsuits, and used judges to collude against me and give me illegal citations, claiming that my license was suspended. That's what happened to me. I ended up having to take some state assistance for a short time because of that, because of the fact that all of a sudden, unexpectedly, I was a displaced college student. I wasn't a displaced worker going to college. That was the reverse. I was a college student who had always been in college, who had not planned for another job or any kind of employment. I was pursuing college full-time. I was actually employed myself as a bookseller in Portland, Oregon, and when they blocked me from being able to drive to where my lawsuits were and my college was, clearly they were cutting me off from everything. And I had no other options set up in Washington State, which they knew. So they basically forced me into poverty. And then they tortured me and tried to make me look like I was mentally ill, and they used the fact that I was on state assistance as an excuse to discredit me and sort of undermine me by lying about me and using the story of, oh, she's just a welfare woman who's, strung out on drugs, or, all of a sudden this thing about drugs was coming up. I'd never been accused, which is why I think something to do with Tanzer and the FBI was possibly a setup, because I'd never been accused my entire life of illegally using drugs.